Thank you for checking out the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm 12 Kyle. I wanted to get on here briefly and talk about the tragic loss that has rocked not only the sports world but just society with the death of NBA legend Kobe Bryant. As many of you know, it was a week ago at the time of this recording that Kobe Bryant boarded a helicopter en route from one destination headed to a basketball game, and the helicopter that he was on crashed and killed not only Kobe but his daughter as well as 7 others. And to say that this was a shock is an understatement. I want to begin by saying first and foremost, rest in peace to all of them. That is such a tragic story, and it has a very touching human element that I'll touch on in just a few. Over the past week, I've watched not really a lot of coverage, but I've watched some coverage of it. It's been the topic of conversation for a lot of people, and I just wanted to give you all my thoughts on it. I normally don't even do current events, but I would be remiss if I didn't get on here and talk a little bit about Kobe. Before I get into Kobe, I would like to take a second to recognize and say rest in peace to the people who really haven't been talked about a lot. They've commonly been referred to as quote unquote the others, but and I get why, because they weren't famous or anything like that, but nonetheless, still tough stories, and really tragic, the fact that they left. And just wanted to, I guess, before I get started, recognize them. Baseball coach, or former baseball coach, John Altobelli, age 56. His wife, Carrie Altobelli, age 46. Their daughter, Alyssa Altobelli, age 13. They perished in this helicopter crash. The Altobellis leave behind 2 kids, JJ and Alexis. Rest in peace to the 3 of them. Christina Mauser, age 38. She was an assistant basketball coach with Kobe's team. She leaves behind a husband. Alyssa Altobelli was a teammate of Kobe Bryant's daughter, Gianna, or Gigi. The pilot, Ara Zobayan, age 50. Sarah Chester, age 45. And her daughter, Peyton Chester, age 13. They leave behind a son, Riley, and husband, Chris. And then there's Kobe's daughter, Gianna, aka Gigi, a budding basketball star in her own right, someone who seemed to be destined to head in the footsteps of her father. She was age 13. And of course, NBA legend, champion, Kobe Bean Bryant, age 41. I think it's, again, there's a human element that kind of, weighs on us all. But it was just, it's really like I said, I guess the biggest thing is that I could take from this is that it's such a tragic story, but it's one of those things where, no matter what happened, it still kind of seems surreal. So it's really kind of weird as to how you kind of process it all. And I think even a week later, I think people are still processing it. For me, it was weird because of how it all transpired. Last Sunday, I'd gotten home from church, just kind of chilling. I was messing around on the computer, and Sundays, I'm rarely on social media. I kind of have this thing where I don't do any social media on Sundays. So I wasn't on Twitter. I wasn't, didn't see anything or whatever like that. I was just chilling. And my homeboy, Nick, from the No Disrespect podcast and Dead End Sports, he hit us up in the Dead End Sports group chat. And he just sent a question. He said, "Did you hear anything about Kobe dying in a crash?" I think it's a helicopter crash. And I perked up because I know that Kobe, frequently flew in helicopters. He flew in helicopters from home to practice to on his game days because it was a quick way for him to get where he lives, somewhere in Orange County, to downtown LA, which I think it might be, I don't know, 25, maybe 30 miles away, but in LA traffic, that's probably like a 3-hour drive. But I mean, I'm pretty sure you could probably make it in 10, 15 minutes via helicopter. So that was something that he did throughout his entire career. Getting on a helicopter for Kobe Bryant was just as routine as you or I getting behind the wheel of a car and driving to work, right? So when Nick sent that, I didn't say anything, but I was like, well, who would say something like that? I'm thinking, because you hear urban rumors and stuff like that all the time. So, curiosity got the best of me. I let it sit there for a second before I responded. And so I was like, let me check. So I went to Twitter, and I didn't check my timeline. I did something that I normally do when I hear news. I'll go search it myself. So I went to the search machine on Twitter and the search portion of Twitter, and I just typed in Kobe Bryant. That was it, because that's all I needed to type in. And the first story that popped up was a link from TMZ. And the link said, so I clicked on the link, and the link said, NBA legend Kobe Bryant dies in helicopter crash. And I'm like, yeah, right. Okay, TMZ, y'all bullshit now. So I closed the link. Didn't think about it. And so I closed the link, and I waited a second, and then I went to open the link again. And when I went to open the link again, it wouldn't open. In fact, there was a message on it that said something to the effect of technical difficulties or something like that. So I guess by this time, maybe I'm assuming that a whole bunch of people were trying to open that particular link, and it may have crashed the site or whatever the case may be. So when I got that message, I was like, see, I just told myself, I was like, see, TMZ on that bullshit again. And so I closed out, the browser, no problem. And I waited probably about another minute. And then something said, go back and check, just to double check to make sure that this link still isn't working. Because I'm thinking to myself, TMZ is going to owe a whole bunch of people, some type of explanation for putting out this, false narrative and overall BS. And I go back to click the link, and it opens up, and it had updated. And it said that not only did Kobe die, but 4 other people died in this crash. And I'm like, whoa. So I was like, I don't know if this is right. And I go back to the Twitter search, and then there's other news media outlets that is picking up. And I think the next link that I saw was from I want to say it was from a California, some type of LA station or what have you. But they were running with the same story that TMZ was running. So I was like, this can't be right. And then over the next minute or two, it was a couple of other outlets that were reporting it, but they weren't, using the TMZ story as a reference. And I just sat there. I was shocked. And so I finally responded to Nick in the group chat, and I just sent him the link, and I was like, it looks like it's true. And then so I hit up some of my boys, and I'm like, did y'all hear about this? And everybody was kind of like in disbelief. And then so slowly but surely, everything is coming to fruition that that's what it is. So I'm still kind of in a weird space because I'm reading it, but I don't believe what I'm reading. So I knew I had to do something. So what I had to do, at least in my mind, I had to make a phone call. And the phone call I had to make would be to my now 20-year-old son, Dion, who's away in college. And the reason why I had to call Dion is because Dion is, a huge Lakers fan. He's a huge Kobe Bryant fan. And I wanted to tell him, before, he could hear it somewhere else. And so this is, and it's kind of weird because we're hearing we're seeing and reading all this stuff in real time. So as I'm calling him now, I'm getting different text messages. Yo, did you hear this? Did you hear that? And then my wife, who wasn't home at the time, she texted me. She was like, did you hear anything about Kobe? And before I could even respond to her, I called Dion. So I called Dion, and he had, we had been texting earlier in the day. He told me he'd gone to church, and, so we were joking about that. And, he answered the phone. He's like, hey, what's up, Dad? Like that. And, he said, so when he answered, very cheerfully, I knew that the word hadn't gotten to him yet. And so I started talking to him, and I don't know what I said, but I was like, hey, I need to tell you something. And I told him, and he was like, are you for real? And I was like, yeah. And then, as we're on the phone, probably about 20 seconds after I said it, I could hear someone come into his room, and they were like, man, did you hear about Kobe Bryant? Like that. So the word was spreading. There's an old saying, bad news travels fast, and it really does. And so I was like, so I'm talking to Dion, and, he's still kind of on the phone in disbelief. And in the meantime, while we're on the phone, just like everybody else, people hit me up asking me if I heard. And I'm like, I can't believe it. And so it took a little bit to process that. And then we got word that his daughter, Gianna, was on the helicopter with him. I think it was a tough pill to swallow, but it would have been even tougher. I mean, I guess having his daughter on there made it that much more tragic. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it was tragic enough, but that just really made it much worse. You know what I mean? So, I didn't, Dion and I talked for a little bit, but I didn't talk long. I wanted him to kind of process and talk with his friends and stuff like that. So once I found out that his daughter was on there, that hit, it hits home, and it makes it that much worse. And I was just kind of blown because you just don't really, you don't really think about people or someone like Kobe leaving. I mean, the reality is that we all have to die, right? I mean, science tells you that everything that lives must die. But I can't remember a athlete, of this caliber, not even a superstar, supernova like Kobe, leaving so tragically so soon in life. I mean, he's only 41. So one other thing that I did Sunday afternoon was, I think the next person that I called was my boy Derek. If you listen to the podcast, you've heard him on here, D Love Hall. And Derek's probably, he's probably the biggest Laker fan that I know. And he's been a Laker fan since the 70s, right? And so I called him and I didn't get him. And he called me back, I think, like 5 minutes later. And I was like, yo, man, are you good? And I could tell just, when he answered the phone, he knew why I was calling. And he was like, man, I don't know what to say. And we both kind of chuckled, but it was like we were still trying to figure it out and trying to process it, and talked to him for a little bit. Then, my boy Zell, Easy Does It VA, he called in. So the three of us talked. We shared a couple of jokes, which was good because it was, needed at the time. But, still processing all the while, we're still hearing that is, 5 people that died. We don't know who died. But, one other phone call that I made that day after I got off the phone with them was to my boy Shaft, another childhood friend of mine. Shaft is probably the second biggest Laker fan that I know. And I called him and talked to him briefly. And it was good, talking to him. But, same thing I asked him. I was like, you good, man? We were just still kind of in disbelief. And I talked to Shaft a little bit later on, probably about, 5 or 6. So all of the news had happened. The press conference had happened with the sheriff's department. And they announced it was actually 9 people that had passed, not 5, as originally reported. And, the sheriff's / police department took issue with TMZ because allegedly Kobe's family, his wife in particular, did not find out from the authorities. They found out the same way we did, through TMZ, which, in my opinion, is tasteless and classless. I think part of the issue is that, in this information age and era, people are so quick to want to get the story, be the first one to report the story. But it's more important that you get the story right than you actually tell the story. And that was bugged out to me. I thought that was tasteless and classless. And I mean, it's not something that surprises me by TMZ, to be honest, because that's how they kick it. They own that steez, and it ain't ever been cool. I mean, before you put the story out, you could have gotten the information to Vanessa Bryant, Kobe Bryant's wife. And most flights, I don't want to say most, almost every flight that goes in the air, whether or not it's a helicopter or a airplane, has a manifest. On the manifest, you have a list of the passengers that are on it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out who perished in that crash. If you could get on the scene and determine that there were no survivors, then whoever was on that helicopter crash. And it would have taken a mere few minutes to reach out to the Bryants and their family, or the families of the Altabellis, or whomever. But, they were quick to put that out there. And I think that was, tasteless. But nonetheless, there we were, Kobe Bryant gone. And I remember I left the house, had some run around, had to do some errands. And by the time I came back, it was probably about 5, maybe almost 6 o'clock. And I remember turning on, because my TV was off the whole day, and I turned the TV on, and I was watching the 6 o'clock Sports Center. And when they showed Kobe's face, and they showed his date of birth, date of death, that's when it kind of really hit home, like, this dude is really gone. And I couldn't believe it. It's still unfathomable to me, you really, again, you don't picture people like that, because here's the thing. You don't picture people like that, like Kobe, dying because Kobe was so present. I mean, here's a guy who has not been playing basketball for the better part of 4 or 5 years, but I think it's been 4 years since he's been retired. But the key thing is that he's been very present. You know, he's been very active with the Mamba Academy, very active with his daughter's basketball. He created a short that actually won an Oscar. I just watched an interview with that Kobe did with All the Smoke podcast with Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes. That podcast was probably about 3 weeks ago from the time of this recording. Really, really dope podcast. Go on YouTube and check it out. And Kobe, it's funny because I remember watching it, and Kobe sitting there and they're interviewing him at the Mamba Sports Academy. And as Kobe's sitting there in his chair, you can see over his left shoulder, you can see the Emmy that he won. You can see, I think, an Emmy and an Oscar. No, it wasn't an Emmy. It was his Oscar, I think, was sitting over his left shoulder. Nonetheless, but I was like, I said to myself, look at Kobe out there stunting. But what's interesting about all of this is that even this podcast that I'm doing right now, this is coming from someone who, for most of Kobe Bryant's career, I didn't like Kobe. I didn't like him at all. I'll say this. Every time I spoke about Kobe being Bryant, I would say, I don't like him, but I respect his game. I respected the hell out of his game, but I didn't like him. I didn't like him probably until maybe about the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years of his career. I think one of the main reasons why I didn't like, everybody knows that Kobe was he wanted to be Jordan. And I think early on I probably took issue with that. Not so much because he wasn't Jordan, because nobody could be Jordan. But I tell you what, he was pretty damn close. I mean, you could tell that he probably spent countless hours watching Come Fly With Me. Now, for you young bucks, if you don't know what Come Fly With Me is, look it up. It's on VHS. Really, really dope. But Kobe wasn't my guy. And if you're an NBA fan like me, I've been watching the NBA since 1980, right? Everybody has a guy. For me, Jordan was my guy. For my friends like Derek, Magic was his guy. If you were a Boston Celtics fan, Bird was your guy, or Dr. J might be your guy, or Isaiah Thomas might be your guy. But, and then as time moved on, Kevin Garnett might be your guy, Kobe might be your guy, or, Tracy McGrady might be your guy, LeBron might be your guy, whomever, right? But he wasn't my guy. And I think, even though I didn't like him, it was based on what I perceived him to be. Now, keep in mind, I didn't know Kobe. I don't know him, still don't know him, but the little bit of him that I do know, initially I didn't like him. But he was so incredible on the basketball court. He was so incredible on the basketball court. And I think what happened for me, what changed was I realized probably, and I mean, I watched him win all of those championships. I wasn't a hater like that, but he wasn't just somebody who I would just, hitch my wagon to. Now, again, on the court, Kobe was cold as hell. I mean, I don't think you'll ever find a competitor like that. He was, again, the closest thing to Jordan. He was just as competitive, just as, driven to be the best. He wanted to not only beat Mike, but he wanted to exceed where Mike was. And he came pretty close. he had a great run with Shaq. And I think when people talk about his legacy, obviously his career and Shaq's career, are intertwined. I think to some degree, and it's not fair to Kobe, but I think to some degree, people, when they're making the case against Kobe, tend to knock him for playing with Shaq. I mean, he didn't have any control of who he played with. But I remember Kobe. I remember Kobe's rookie year in the playoffs against Utah, shooting those air balls. And what stood out to me, not so much as the fact that he shot the air balls, but he was not afraid of the moment to take them. That's something that you can't coach. That's something that you can't teach. That's something that you just, you just are. And he wasn't afraid of the moment. And even back then, while I didn't like him, I could admire and I did respect him having the, the balls to do it. Because again, most people wouldn't. But that's who Kobe was, man. Kobe was, and in fairness, Kobe didn't allow you to get close. He didn't, this was the pre-social media age. So, we knew very little. He was a kid that came into the league. He was young. He was brash, but he was about his business. He was about his hard work, and he was going to bust his ass. But he was also, kind of aloof. He was kind of goofy. He was kind of, he was trying to rap in Italian. He went to the prom with Brandy. But he was so cold on the basketball court, and you couldn't deny that. I don't care what kind of hater you were. And I was a hater. Make no mistake about it. I was a hater, but I always gave him his props on the court. And I always said it. Kobe didn't strike me as somebody I'd go have a beer with. But if my life depended on it and he had to play a game for my life, I think Kobe would win. I mean, he was just that good. And he is, unequivocally one of the greatest basketball players to ever play. Now, if you have a list, where you put him on the list, hey, man, you get no argument from me at all. But I think for me, like I said, all of those years through the titles and everything, I was a hater. I recognized the game, but I was a hater. And then I think I finally came around, like I said, probably about 5 years before he retired. I remember watching him play one night. It was on TNT. And I saw something I'd never seen before. One of his teammates missed a shot. I can't remember who it was. And the guy missed a shot. They got the ball and they ran back the other way and they scored or whatever the case may be. Lakers call a timeout. Kobe walks over to his teammate and he's laughing. He's literally laughing at his teammate and he kind of mouths, "It's going to be okay. I got you." That's what he said. And for me, I'd never seen that before from Kobe. I mean, I've seen teammates take bad shots. I've seen Kobe take bad shots. And you would see Kobe scowl or roll his eyes. Or I remember games where they said Kobe shot too much, and Kobe, in protest, wouldn't shoot the ball at all. You remember. But that's who he was, man. And I think in that moment when I saw him do that, I'd never seen. I don't even think, at least I can't recall. I'm pretty sure that he did, but up until that point, I don't ever recall ever seeing Kobe Bryant smile on a basketball court. And to me, it just looked like he was having fun and he was doing what it took to, tap into his teammates and get the best out of them. And I thought that was something different. That was something that I'd never seen before. And you could kind of see that his teammates were into him and he was into his teammates. And for me, after that, it changed. My perspective on Kobe changed. I started liking the dude. I mean, I would never call myself a Laker fan because I hated the Lakers growing up. I still hate the Lakers, but something changed in that moment for me as far as Kobe was concerned. And he got into his teammates, and you could just tell he got it. Like the light went off, and he realized that, he had to, in order for him to get the best out of his teammates, he had to plug into them. And it's more to it than just, what you do on the court.
That's really hard, right? And understanding, how do you find an emotional connection with each player, figure out what their fears are, and help turn those fears into strengths. And to do that, you have to put time in. And I don't mean time in the gym. I mean time listening, breakfast, lunch, dinner, talking to guys, listening to what they're saying.
When did that happen for you?
After we lost to the Celtics. After we lost to the Celtics, because Michael told me the same thing. He said, listen, you have all the individual tools. Now you got to figure out how to connect with each one of those guys and bring the best out of those guys. It's not about just passing them the ball and saying that's what makes guys better. That's not it. You have to figure out how to touch the right buttons to make them want to be the best version of themselves. How do you do that? And that was my challenge in 2009 and 2010. I was able to figure it out.
And that's what it speaks to. That's exactly what it speaks to, being able to tap into your teammates. And that's what he did. And in that moment, like I said, I got to a point where I was just like, I got to see Kobe play. And to be honest, I felt kind of foolish a little bit, because I was like, you've been hating on this dude for damn near his whole career. Don't you feel like a fool? This is greatness right here, and that you're not even tapped into this greatness because you're hung up on he wasn't your guy. Well, you can appreciate basketball and you can appreciate the player without being, a fan or tapping into whatever it is that he's doing. You don't have to be a fan of the Lakers to be a fan of Kobe Bryant. And I realized that particular season, and obviously Kobe goes on and he tears his Achilles, and he's, trying to bring this Lakers team. And then, those last couple of years, he probably could have shut it down. He got broke off as far as the Lakers were concerned. And that contract, to some degree, kind of, stunted the development of the Lakers. But, he wouldn't have it any other way. And to be honest, he deserved it. He deserved it. I mean, he put in the work, and he was rewarded for it. And that's the way that it should be. But those last couple of years, man, every chance I got the chance to see Kobe, I would watch him. And I wanted to see him do well. And while everybody was trying to pit, as LeBron was moving up, and then you saw the emergence of the Warriors, I really appreciated seeing Kobe, man, because I felt like, his greatness. And players like this don't come along every year. And they don't. And as a basketball fan, now I have a team. My team is the Hawks. So it's not like my team is a chief rival or adversary of Kobe's teams. My team is the Hawks. We don't have, or didn't have that type of superstar on our team. But if Kobe was on TV, I was checking him out. I was really, really rooting for him. And I was hoping that, he could, even though I knew in my heart of hearts that he probably wouldn't catch Jordan with the, 6 rings, I would have liked to have seen him get close or closer than he got. And I remember that, series that he won against Boston. I can't front. I was rooting for him. I was hoping that, because I hate Boston too. I think at that point I hate the Lakers, but I hate Boston more. So I was really I wasn't rooting for the Lakers, but I was cool with the Lakers winning. So, when Kobe got his was that his 5th ring, I was cool. And I tell people all the time, like, I felt like he and Shaq going separate ways, while it worked out for both of them. I think if they had stayed together, I think they could have run off, 7, 8, 9 championships easily. But everything happens for a reason. But yeah, Kobe, that's when things changed for me. And then, like I said, I got to a point where I just, I could appreciate the guy, man, and I really enjoyed watching him. And I didn't let my pettiness or hate for him, quote unquote hate for him, ruin my chance to enjoy him and celebrate him and kind of give him his flowers while he was still playing the game of basketball. I didn't this past week. I haven't really spent that much time on social media. The little time that I have, and fortunately for me, I would have to say smart on my part. Like, I didn't get on Twitter at all Sunday, the day of the crash. I think I sent out a couple of tweets on Monday, and anytime I did get on Twitter, it was just in my mentions. I didn't want to check the timeline because I can only imagine what people were saying. Someone did send me a text. One of my friends did send a text, a screenshot of people talking about, what happened in Colorado. Now, if you're familiar with Kobe Bryant, you know about the rape allegation that he went to trial for. And, he settled out of court in a civil suit. And I'll say this. I don't know what happened between Kobe and that woman in Colorado. Kobe said it was consensual sex. She said that he forced himself upon her and raped her, sexually assaulted her. You can go back and look at the transcripts of all that was reportedly as to what happened and make a case, make the judgment for yourself. Kobe again, settled out of court. He, publicly apologized to his wife, the Lakers organization, and they, he and his wife Vanessa, they went through a tough time, to the point where she had actually filed for divorce, or she drew up the papers for them to get a divorce. But for whatever reason, they fought through it and they made it. And the reason why I bring up Colorado is that it was brought to my attention that some people were talking about that. I get it, but I don't get it. I mean, it was Sunday. The man had just died. He'd been dead for 2 or 3 hours, and people are talking about, what happened in Colorado. He's a rapist. Da 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 da. Stop it. Relax. I think you have to show some level of class and respect for the deceased. If you want to engage in a conversation about what happened in Colorado or your opinions of what happened in Colorado, go for it. I just don't think that was the time or the place for that. Not when it just happened. I mean, the man just died, right? It's not the time and the place for that. Now, if you want to have that conversation, that discussion, that's something that can be revisited down the road. And whenever that part of the road that you want to talk about it happens, then let it be. But up until then, let it go, man. Let it go. I don't know how that lady feels. I don't even know who she is. Because I don't think I guess I probably could look up her name, but I don't know if she's made a statement or anything. I don't know how she feels. And at this point it doesn't matter, because here's the thing. Kobe's gone. And he's not coming back. So talking bad about him or whatever like that, which is what some people on social media do. It doesn't change anything. And I think it's classless. Again, you can have your feelings and your opinions as to what, if you think that he did something that he wasn't supposed to do, okay, fine. But talking about it and being, ignorant about it 2 hours after the man dies, I think is classless. That's just me. I do have some memorable moments from Kobe. Man, probably one of my favorite memorable moments was the pass that Kobe threw to Shaq the alley-oop against Portland to give them the lead. And people always see that clip, but if you weren't around or you weren't if you weren't outside back then, you'd have to understand that was Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, right? It was the fourth quarter. The Lakers started that quarter down by 17 points to Portland at home. I mean, like, you could literally see their opportunity to go to the finals slipping away. And slowly but surely, they just started, chopping them down. And Portland got tight. And I mean, Portland literally was 12 minutes away from going to the NBA Finals. And then Kobe hit Shaq with the alley-oop, and that was all she wrote. It was a wrap. But they fought back and battled back from being down 17 in the fourth quarter. You normally don't blow a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter in an NBA game, especially a game of that magnitude. The Lakers go on to do what they do, and Portland, really hasn't been the same since. I mean, they haven't gotten any closer to winning a title. So that was memorable. 2003 All-Star game. That was the All-Star game that was here in Atlanta, where I live. That one was memorable because that was Jordan's last All-Star game. And I'll never forget, Jordan comes down. The game is tight. Jordan hits the fadeaway with like 4 seconds left. And, crowd is going crazy. The Jordan squad takes the lead. Well, Kobe is not going to be denied. He comes down and he goes to shoot a three, gets fouled by Jermaine O'Neal. So it's 3 shots. He makes 2 of his 3 shots, sends the All-Star game in overtime. The West win in overtime, led by Kevin Garnett. But just seeing Kobe on the court with Jordan one last time, that was a beautiful thing to see. And the last memory I had was just one of, again, just sheer respect for the man. When he tore his Achilles. If you remember, Kobe was, taking the ball to the hole. He falls down. He tears his Achilles. And he gets up and, instead of walking to the, locker room, he's down for a little while. They realize that, he knows that his Achilles is gone. And the NBA has a rule that if you get hurt and you get fouled, if someone else shoots your free throws, you can't come back in the game. Which would have made all the sense in the world for Kobe to leave. I mean, he's got a torn Achilles. He's not coming back in the game. But Kobe gets up, he shoots his free throws. Both of them. Makes both of them. And then the Lakers call timeout. He walks off the court and heads to the locker room. But Kobe, really shot the free throws and kind of gave off the impression like he could go to the locker room, get taped up, and come back into the game. Nah, bro, you just tore your Achilles. But that spoke volumes about who he was as a competitor, the ultimate competitor. So those are some of the things that I'll miss, man. But ultimately, I think the reason why this tragedy kind of hits home is that for the last few years, I saw Kobe just as a dad. And you would see him with his daughter at the game. Every now and then he and his wife would come to the games and they'd have their daughters. And, he and his wife, Vanessa, leave behind. Well, he leaves behind, obviously, his wife, Vanessa, his daughter, his oldest daughter, and I think her name is Natalia. And then he has another daughter that's 3 and another daughter, I think that's 7 months, I think. She's a baby. They lost their father. She lost her husband. They lost their sister. And that's tough because, again, how I've seen Kobe over the last few years when I've seen him on TV, I've seen him as a dad. And every time I saw him, he was being a dad. He was smiling and having a good time. And I think one of the things that really has kind of opened my eyes, probably over these last few days, is not just the outpouring of love from the fans and everything, but just the stories of Kobe being a big brother and a mentor to so many guys in the NBA. And I think that goes back to what I said earlier. I think Kobe realized that, his investment needs to be in people. And he can give back to people. Because for a long time, Kobe, I think there was a famous quote that Kobe made that, he doesn't worry about, and I'm paraphrasing here, he doesn't worry about friendships because banners and championships are all that matter. And what that struck me as a man who was immensely talented, but just didn't get it, that, you play a team sport. And some of the biggest and best things that you will do is the relationships and friendships and the brotherhood that you form while playing the sport. I know it on a much, much smaller level, from playing football. But just being an athlete and the camaraderie that you have with your, fellow guys. And just hearing these stories about how he's been a mentor and a big brother, how he's reached out to guys and how they have, it seems like every player, I won't say every, but a lot of players have stories about, Kobe talking to them, helping them out with their game, not only on the court, but off the court as well. And those things were really kind of touching and heartwarming, because for a long time, I don't think Kobe believed in that. I think Kobe he worked so hard at his craft that he didn't have time for friends. I think he, at least from where I sit, it looked like he was just really about himself. And maybe around that time where I started to develop an appreciation for him, he realized that, hey, it's not about me. It's about what I can do to help you get better. And so he's been like this basketball sensei for the last few years. And it's been great to watch. And it's very unfortunate that we won't get a chance to see it anymore. But I think that's the thing that I'll miss about Kobe. Just seeing him being a dad. And, again, every time I saw Kobe, man, he was smiling and having a good time. In his interviews, he's so calm and chill and laid back. He's smiling and having a good time. And that's what it was about. And it wasn't, again, early in his career, it wasn't about that. It was about Kobe. It was about winning. And, I mean, yeah, you saw him winning with Shaq and you saw him, being happy and cheerful then. But, you also saw someone who was so driven that I don't think, or at least I hope, that he took the time to stop and smell the roses. One of the things that I think this tragedy can do is, help you and me, just kind of think about life. Because I remember Sunday when I was explaining it to my son Brandon. Brandon's 13. Brandon's the same age as Gianna. And I was telling him, and I said, well, I said, they died in a helicopter crash. I said, so we were talking. I said, man, you know what, Brandon? I said, it would be the same as if, like, me and you were in a helicopter crash and we didn't come home. And we leave behind your mom, your sister, and your two brothers. Because Kobe's got 4 kids. I have 4 kids as well. And even then telling Brandon that, I kind of had to pause because, I was like, damn, that's just, you don't want to think about that. My heart goes out to, all of the families that I mentioned, because they're going to need some serious healing and they're going to need some serious prayer. And I can't imagine what, Vanessa Bryant is going through, having lost, a guy that she was married to. Her whole adult life, all she knows is Kobe. And to not only lose her husband and her friend, but to lose her child. As a parent, that's the biggest fear. I don't ever want to bury my child. They're supposed to bury me when I'm, old and gray and out of here. But nah, man, that's like any parent's biggest fear. So I don't know how you move on. I know that you have to move on, but I don't know how you move on. But I think that's one of the things that I'm definitely going to miss. And I know I even remember hearing, people talking about, well, yeah, I wonder what the final moments were like. I mean, does it matter? Rather than concern myself with how Kobe Bryant died, I think it's important that we celebrate how he lived. And from all accounts, he looked to be very happy and content where he was in life and where he was headed. And I think really the sad part about all of it is I think he was just really getting started as to where he was headed in the second stage of his life. And he spent so much time and was devoted with so much time to basketball. I think he was going to be great at whatever the path that he was on. And, it's unfortunate that we won't get a chance to see this. It's unfortunate that, these little girls on this basketball team, they'll never get it. I mean, Kobe, in a lot of ways, had a full life. But these young girls, including his daughter, 13, man, they were just getting started with life, to be honest. And that's the cruel thing. And we don't know why. And I think you just have to do the best that you can. But yeah, I think that's the part that I'm going to miss. I'm glad that I got a chance to, see Kobe. I'm glad I got a chance to experience Kobe. One of the things that Dion said to me when we were on the phone, he said, "Dad, you had Jordan. Kobe was my Jordan." And it hit home because I remember when Dion was a kid, I still have these tapes of Michael Jordan in the finals because I said, when I have a son, I'm going to show him these tapes and show him what greatness was. And lo and behold, he never got a chance to see Jordan because Dion was born in 99 and Jordan retired in 98. He never got a chance to see Jordan play, but if you want to call Kobe the next best thing, I mean, he saw him up close and personal and he became a huge fan. And so I feel for him because he, like most fans, are, pretty down and hurting. And it's understandable. And I saw a lot of, people being very emotional. And it's okay. It's okay. I think for me, like I said, I think the biggest thing was just seeing him being happy as a father. And I can tap into that because that's how I am. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Kobe's parents. I don't know what they're feeling like. And my thoughts and prayers are with them as well because if you're familiar with the story, Kobe and his parents had a huge falling out. I hope that before he left this earth that they squashed everything. Because it's well documented, they had a falling out. Kobe ended up even having to take his parents to court. And I wonder if they missed out on some of those years of, not being able to be the grandparents that they probably wanted to be when the relationship was strained. Or if they got a chance to be the parents that they wanted to be to their now adult famous son. He also leaves behind two sisters who, loved him to death. So those are the things that I think about. And I would ask all of you who are listening to this podcast, pray. I know it sounds cliche, but just pray. Pray for these families because it's a long road ahead. And this is something that you don't get over. Yeah, the NBA family, NBA fans, they are, hurting right now. I don't think you can be an NBA fan and not feel the pain, or at least some of the pain from all of this. Because I think, and again, I'm not a Lakers fan, but it hurts. I'm not over here, shedding tears and crying, but there are people that are, and that's okay. And I think, it's okay to, be in tune and in touch with some of the words and the memorials and watching things and watching people and watching his colleagues talk about it. But it's also okay to put that stuff down, because watching someone else cry will ultimately make you cry. But it's okay if you have to cry. But you also don't want to make yourself sad either. Because there's a time for mourning, but there's also a time for celebration. And there will be waves of this. The All-Star game is coming. The announcement of the Hall of Fame is coming. The Hall of Fame ceremony is coming. The NBA Finals, if the Lakers make it to the NBA Finals, and my heart goes out to, people like LeBron. My heart really goes out to LeBron, because LeBron, the night before Kobe died, passed him on the all-time scoring list. Kobe's last tweet was a tweet to LeBron congratulating him and encouraging him to push the game forward. Kobe and LeBron also shared a phone call later that evening that, several Lakers players got a chance to hear. For all we know, that might have been the last phone call that Kobe Bryant made to the guy who was his, I don't want to say his successor, but, a guy who he called a little brother. Jordan called Kobe a little brother. Kobe was a big brother to so many, and we're finding out more and more. And those stories will continue to pour in. But again, I ask you to pray, because that's all that we can do. Pray for these families, because it's going to be a long road. And what's going to happen is it's just the natural evolution. There will be this swell of these people uplifting you and kind of encouraging you. And then there'll be a memorial service, And then after a while, everybody goes home and everybody goes back to their lives. These kids, these friends, these family members, these spouses that have been left behind, they're going to have to try to live this life without their loved ones. They lost them so tragically. And, it's tough. This was a tragic loss. I think, Kobe's leaving us is way too soon. Again, I say rest in peace to Kobe, his daughter, everybody on that helicopter crash. Condolences to their families, their friends, their loved ones, basketball fans, Lakers fans, and to the people that Kobe inspired to play, because much like what Dion told me, Kobe is their Jordan. He really and truly is. But like I said, as I remember Kobe, I just remember that cat smiling, having a good time, enjoying life. And that's what it's supposed to be about. Fierce competitor on the basketball court. Again, when you see him, and I think that's one of the things that kind of tugged at me a little bit was, seeing him with his daughter is how I am with my daughter. And, in a lot of ways, Kobe did what a lot of us do. And I was, when I finally did get on Facebook, one of the first things that jumped out at me was something that my cousin Asia said, and I'll read it to you, and I quote. She said, "For me, the hardest part about the unexpected passing of Kobe Bryant is he was doing what so many of you on my timeline do. Being a supportive, invested, and present parent. When you strip away the fame, money, and accolades, what we see is a family man simply engaging in his child's life and walking alongside her as she chased her passion. It's the human element. He is us. We are him." Close quote. And I'll leave you with this thought. It's a quote that I always used to hear growing up. And it says, quote, "The one thing that we all know about life can be summed up in 2 words. In 3 words, excuse me. It goes on." Close quote. And it really does. Life goes on, we go on, but we never forget. Thanks again for checking out the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I'm your boy 12 Kyle. Catch you guys next time. 5 G's.